We're recording.
If she'd asked for another story.
Everyone dies and it's my fault seems to be another theme that I say.
What did you say, Dave?
If she had asked for another story, that would have also involved a friend dying.
Of course it would have. All right, Johnny.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Self-Publishing Podcast. Today I have coerced Tammi to come on. Tammi Labrecque is our we
fiction hacker.
Yeah, fiction hacker. Because she's gone through a few subtle variations of title, but basically that's ads and promotions, that sort of thing, like making hacking the fiction promotion for us. And she's done an amazing job of all of those things and knows the ad and promotion world way better than us. And so we delegate to her on that all the time, or defer to her, like, hey, Tam, whatever you think is best. Like, whatever you think is best, just make it happen.
Yeah, so, a lot of, we trust you.
Yeah. So we coerced Tammi to come on over to only a small amount of protest. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about promotion and just, hacking your own fiction. So that's it. So do we have something cool?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have anything cool. I'm coolest for the first time in a while.
I have something that is, this happened between shows. So
what?
For those of you who aren't live, it's actually only a little bit cool. Like, there's parts of it that I'm not comfortable with. So there's, for those of you who aren't listening live, we just recorded another episode. So we stopped, and then there was just 5 minutes to go, just, go to the bathroom, get water, whatever, and then come back. And so Austin has a friend over, and I gave his friend, because his dad is a writer too, and so I gave him some. I gave him books. Like, I gave one for his dad and one for him, and the ones I had on hand, that what the only kid safe one, I had the Dream Engine, and I gave his dad Dead City, and he was like, "Oh, I thought it was great. He was telling me how much he liked Dead City." So Austin's buddy here was just like, "Oh, my friend, whatever, who's in 5th grade, read Dead City, thinks it's great, wants to read another one." I'm like, "That's not the one I wanted you to read. Why are you? No, stop. No, that's."
And he also read that Lexi book that he found on the bookshelf.
Well, fortunately, that one is relatively safe, other than the fact that there's so much like zombies and violence and stuff. Like,
yeah, my kids have actually heard the audio, like, because we listen.
Yeah, so it's not. It could be a lot worse, basically. Like, it doesn't have any necrophilia scenes like some books in this.
Yeah, Haley's can I read yesterday? Because I told Haley she could read Yesterday's Gone when she turned 15, and she's 15, so she has been asking. And I'm like, don't you want to read them in print? We really need good print editions of those first.
When are they going to be ready? 2024.
That's about right.
3 years from now.
So that was my something questionably cool. Does anyone else have anything?
No.
Well, okay, yeah. So Kate said, but the summit's next week. That's cool.
I already gave that one.
Very cool, but Johnny took it last episode. Amy has a great idea. Let's flip this around. Instead of it being the summit is in a week, it's Dave will be here in a week. 1 week from right now. Johnny and
now people are going to triangulate on where I am.
But to be fair, the people who bought tickets knew that you would be in Austin at the summit. Like, I don't think that's a secret.
No, 1 week from right now, we will be tooling around Austin, the three of us. That's pretty exciting. That is
when you say tooling, I definitely get a vision of a convertible jalopy.
No. I mean, Dave's going to bring his Tool CD, and we're going to be listening to Sober while driving around Austin.
I'm not going to listen to Sober. I'll listen
Why
to
not?
Anima.
Okay, well, that works too. All right, so that's my something.
So, Tammi, do you have anything cool?
I don't have anything cool.
How about something supremely uncool you can tell about your own?
So what's fun about Tammy's answer that she just gave is, we was here early, and I said, "You sticking around for something cool?" She's, uh-huh. Tammi, you have anything cool? Nope.
Well,
I have stage fright.
Oh, stage fright. Oh, we can pull that out of you. What was it? Was it a person, place, or a thing?
It was
a movie.
I put up a pre-order today for my pen name, but see, that's lame because my pen name is a secret. So yay, everyone.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
pre-order.
style.
But
all the time.
Tammy's Something Cool will forever be Beauty and the Beast.
I do love that show. I do love that movie so very much. That handsome everybody. I was going to pick one, but you know what? They're all handsome.
I like the Ron Perlman version.
So do I. That is a guilty pleasure. Season 1 of that terrible show from the 80s. I remember being when I was in high school that was on. Quite young, I think maybe freshman or sophomore year of high school, and trying to tell a friend of mine about it, right? And so trying to explain to her, he's half kind of lion, he's like an animal, I don't know. And she was like, that sounds really stupid. And I was like, well, but he walks upright. And she was like, oh, well, then in that case.
If he walks upright.
And then I felt really stupid. But I do actually like that. No, that was Dave's Something Cool, Amy. That was not my Something.
And it wasn't a terrible show. It's a good show.
We saw Beauty and the Beast at the Alamo Draft House, and they always do somewhat related content. They don't do ads before the movies; they do cool stuff, right? So they were showing clips from the Beauty and the Beast '80s TV show before Beauty and the Beast the movie, and it was not aged well at all.
It was not very good in the first season, and then it got worse, notably worse. So don't watch that show.
Well, I don't know which seasons they pulled from, but I think they were pulling clips that were supposed to make you laugh a little.
That'd be all of them. So yeah.
So I had comprehensive notes for this chapter, for this, but however, they vanished, much like
mine did too.
Yeah,
you guys are lying. You didn't even have any notes, did you?
There's a whole task missing in Asana that they were attached to. Fortunately, this is something that we, being me, Sean, and Dave, to some degree,
barely need notes
know well enough that we can prompt you without watch us, without even needing show notes. We can definitely prompt you on this and roll. So basically, let's look big picture. The big boy is still if you want to hack your fiction and do amazingly well with all this stuff, that BookBub is still the nuclear option, right?
Yes, but you can't say just get a BookBub and that'll solve your problems, because that's like saying just become a New York Times bestseller and that will solve your problems.
Wouldn't that be awesome if there was a course you could buy and it was $97 and then you just opened a README file that said get a BookBub?
Yeah. So here's the thing, and you guys know this. Everybody knows this. When you are making goals and plans, you make goals and plans for things that you have control over, and things like becoming a bestseller, getting a BookBub, any variety of things that you want to do that will be helpful to your career, they're not in your control. Those are actually not things you can control. I happen to think that there are ways to say apply for a BookBub that make you more likely to be accepted, but they can still say no, and they often do. So that's not.
If there's a checklist of 100 things to optimize your BookBub submission, you can do all 100 of them, and it doesn't matter. They're the conversion experts. If they don't think your book's going to convert, they're not going to pick it.
Exactly. So if you want to sell your book, what it breaks down to is all of our favorite catchphrases. Know your why. It depends. Who are your readers? All of that stuff that we talk about all of the time. I've got I was scrolling through some friends' recent releases to get ready for this today. And I've got 4 friends that are all in the top 1,000 of the Amazon store right now, right? So I've got a pair of friends actually with an urban fantasy in the top 200. I've got a friend with a box set in the 600s, a romance new release in the 300s, and a sea adventures thing in the 700s. Every one of those people does things differently, treats their readers differently, treats their mailing list differently, had different ads to support that. So this is all just know yourself, know your readers, know your outcomes, and then there's just kind of some best practices, So first question is, are we talking about launch or are we talking about evergreen sales?
Well, let's
both.
Yeah,
right?
let's begin with launch, because I think that's That's the lowest hanging fruit for most people. Like you do want to promote between launches, obviously, but I think that launch is when people are looking at number one, where they're really focused on it, and number two, where they're looking to get the most bang of the buck. So is number one, actually, I do know the answer to this, but typically you wouldn't apply for a BookBub to help launch your book necessarily, right?
I would not, actually. And there are advertisers that you can. So BookBub is the elephant in the room, right? It's analogous to Amazon in that way, how Amazon is the biggest bookseller and BookBub is arguably, well, not even arguably, it's objectively the biggest newsletter advertiser route that you can take. But there's a bunch of other smaller ones, and some of those will take books that are not yet released. If you have a pre-order, or there are even a few that if you contact them and say the book's going to be released on this date, can I book a time and I'll get you the ASIN when it's closer, that will let you do launch promo. And that's fine, because those are advertisers that are, $20, $50, like something like that. But when you're talking about a BookBub that's going to run you a considerable amount of money, they're just not even they're not going to take you that close to launch, because you're not going to meet any of their metrics. I mean, they're going to take you that close to launch if you're Nora Roberts, but we're not. So you're not going to meet their metrics for like being able to determine if it's the kind of book that's going to get them a lot of sell-through, because they are the conversion wizards. Like, they understand what converts, and I mean, they're making money off of that list, and it's not just the money that we give them. They make money off of affiliate sales and so forth. So I would never apply for a BookBub for a brand new book until it had a pretty good rank and a good double handful of reviews. Like, you're going to want, no, I'd say even more than that. I'd wait until I had like 20 reviews at least, and then go ahead. I have seen them take books that have very few reviews. I have seen them take books that were not ranked well, and I've seen them take books that are new, but I have never seen that trifecta come through a BookBub.
So what do you consider, what are the first things we should look at for launch? For a brand
First thing you're going to look at for launch is you're going to start planning before you do your launch, right? So you're going to be talking about building buzz, and you build buzz by accessing those fans that you have. If you've got like super fans, people that absolutely preach about you. Romance writers have these for sure. I have a friend who writes, he's the guy I was talking about earlier with the Sea Adventures, my friend Wayne. He's got super fans. Those people buy his books on day one, and they preach about him, right? So if you've got those kind of super fans, you start telling those people as soon as you have anything at all to tell them. Wayne has a word counter on his website, and he keeps people up to date every week at least with how many words are in the manuscript, how it's going, when he thinks it might be out, just constantly keeping them up to date. Emails his newsletter every 2 weeks. He has a release every 3 months or so, but he emails his newsletter every 2 weeks. They've come to expect them. He tells them what he's doing out on the boat. He tells them what he's doing with his work in progress. He tells them what his kid is doing. He tells them what he's reading, right? So you're constantly cultivating these people who like you. And then when you have something to tell them about your book, it's coming along, it's getting closer, it's going to be out next week, guys. They start talking, they start haunting your Amazon page, they start telling everybody else, they're sharing your posts on social media. If you have a pre-order, they'll start clicking as soon as it's up. So there's some stuff you can do, before you even launch to get people excited for it.
What are you seeing in terms of differences between genres? So is what works in romance, works in science fiction, works in horror, works in literature to some degree, and then it's just varying amounts?
I think there are definitely differences. For example, I don't see the kind of excitement about cover reveals in other genres that I see in, say, romance or
I can't even imagine it ever being the same in another genre.
Yeah, it's really
why do you think that is? Is it because the romance covers usually have like a hot-looking guy in it or something?
I don't know. My most recent
I think that's really straightforward. It's because they're personalizing the stories a lot more.
I also think, I see it a lot in urban fantasy as well. People really love the cover reveals in urban fantasy, and that's because I think it's a matter, you know what I think it is I think in a lot of ways it's a matter of identification, but I'm kind of pulling this out of my butt at the moment. Because when you think about an urban fantasy cover, like that's what you think is like the kick-ass guy or the hero, now that we're doing a lot of like dude urban fantasy, which is pretty cool. And and you see them and you're like, that's the kind of person I want to read a book about, right? Which I guess is what happens in romance too. It's just like, those are the kind of abs I want to read a book about, because that's pretty much what's on romance these days, is a lot of abs.
Kate Morgan says romance. Kate Morgan says romance covers have super pretty dresses. Yo, just saying.
I love the pretty dress covers. Courtney Milan does those, just those beautiful, beautiful, like ball gowny, like historical romance dresses. I love that stuff. I eat that up with a spoon.
So it's a very visual thing.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. And like your newest literary whatever is maybe not going to have that same kind of, it doesn't have that same kind of cover. So
it's because with romance, sizzle is as important as the steak. And so,
and
a horror book is usually like some dark thing, or maybe somebody holding a bloody axe or something. How excited are you going to get about that?
Bloody. But just like imagine, you're on an author newsletter, and like I don't know, who wrote Running with Scissors? That's Augustin Burroughs. Is that right? But like, so think about that cover. It's a kid, like, and it's sort of washed out. It's not even sepia toned. It's like orange toned. It's just like a kid on a cover. I can't imagine doing a cover reveal for that. That's a literary cover. It's not an exciting cover. It's not a genre cover. But for genres, cover reveals are a big deal, and people get excited about them. So, and it gives people something to share, especially if you have it on, social media, or Pinterest or Instagram or wherever you do that kind of thing. So that's one of the things that you can do in lead up to whatever. You can also tease people with like actual teasers, a couple of paragraphs, a witty line of dialogue, something, because they're there for writing. They are there for the story after all. So
when you do that, when you do the tease or the paragraphs, what sort of thing are you looking to tease? Are you looking at the opening, or specific lines, or setting? What? Or does it depend on genre?
It depends, but what most people seem to like, and keep in mind, these are people signed up like for an author newsletter or who are following an author on Facebook. So they don't just want to know when the book comes out, but they're like actually sort of interested in the author in some way. And those sorts of people tend to like a little bit of a background glimpse at something. So a lot of times I'll advise other people to show them a little snippet of rough draft. Like, granted, it's not your best work and maybe the commas aren't in the right place. But if you say like, I just wrote this morning and I'm super excited about it, and it's a funny little exchange between your hero and your heroine, and if it signs off in a way that's just clever or witty or has a little twist in the tail, people get excited about that. They're, oh, I want to read that book. That sounds like a fun book. That sounds like the kind of book that I like. So
this child is really in jeopardy.
And
this child is in serious jeopardy.
I think it depends on the project and how well you know your audience too, right? So if one book is all about the setting, right, then that's a different message than if it's all about the characters, right? So I think what you share is indicative about, like, think about when you watch a movie and they have those, not just the trailers, but the clips where they do, you're watching basically a minute uncut of the movie, and what scene do they pick? Well, who are they trying to get in the theater? If they want people who like things blowing up, then they're going to show a clip that has something really exciting. If they want a character moment, they're going to show two people talking.
Yeah. So, we're doing some romance now. And so the things that work with romance are very different. So a romance launch, the sample is a sex scene. In sci-fi, it's action. I mean, we just relaunched Dead City, and the first handful of chapters of Dead City are bang, bang, bang. They're really very short. And so I think I sent out a sample I sent an email, if I remember this right. It went out this morning because I queued it up a few days ago. I think the email contains, I think it contains the first chapter was really short. It's just a few hundred words. And then there's a link to go to more, and I stuck that on. I think this is right. I think I stuck them on a blog page because I didn't want the email to be super long, but it was like the first chapter is riveting, and then like I want to click and read more. But it's different for the romance. It's about how hot is the guy on the cover, how steamy is the feel of whatever you send. Visual teasers is also something that we haven't experimented with outside of that subgenre, because it's not part of the culture, much like a cover reveal. So that's interesting as well.
So that's basically the the buildup, right? There's a limited amount of things you can do before you have an actual book to give people, but basically what you want to do is give them a glimpse of the thing that draws them to your book. You want to be getting people excited in the lead up to the book, and you want people to constantly be saying, that sounds like the kind of book that I would like to read. I need to keep an eye out for that book. So you get yourself up to that point, and then launch day comes. Right? So launch day is when the whole flurry of everything happens. Like it or not, we're a little bit dependent on Amazon for a pretty big chunk of our income if we're selling books as an indie publisher. And so unlike the other bookstores, which are a little bit more curated, where you can be discovered in the way that you used to get discovered in, actual old-fashioned bookstores, Amazon is entirely algorithm driven. It's entirely search engine driven. That's a lie. You know that they'll override the algorithms if they have to for a really big trad name. But the thing is, based on the function of how Amazon works, they mostly don't have to. You know what I mean? Like Stephen King's going to be at top. That's how that's going to work. I'm not. So what you're trying to do is get some traction, and Amazon weights those first 30 days very heavily. And then you have what they call the 30-day cliff, where like it's a lot harder to get some attention from the algorithm, and then the 60 and then the 90-day cliff. And then after the 90-day cliff, it's a real struggle to get things back up, which is not to say that it can't happen for indies as well as trads, but it's a lot harder. So you want to really maximize at launch. And you do that in a variety of ways. Again, know your why, know your reader, know your goals. But it's all the standard stuff. None of this is a surprise to anybody that's really paying attention. You need to email your list. You have a list, right? Because that's kind of super wicked important. So you email your list. You remind your advanced reader team, because you have an advanced reader team, right? You remind them that the book is out and it's time to review. You'll keep an eye on your mailing list as an aside, and then after a couple of days, you're going to want to retarget the people that show as not opening. Now, we could do a whole show on whether non-opens are actual non-opens, because
maybe
often
later.
people open your emails and read your emails and they don't actually show as having been opened. So, there's a fine balance there. You don't want to keep sending to people who got the darn thing, but you retarget the people who appear not to have opened. You make sure if you're doing a lower price launch, which I recommend early on. I think that some people can dispense of those later, some can't. That'll depend on you. But if you're doing a lower price launch, like a 99-cent launch or a $2.99 for a book that's normally $4.99 or something like that, you need to let them know how long it's going to be that price for. You need to remind them. You need to send them a last chance email, even though they're super hokey and nobody likes them. And I actually got like for us, not for myself, but for us, I got somebody saying, it's weird that your mailing list keeps telling me that this price is going to go up. Do you think I'm going to buy another copy? And I was like, no, but let me tell you something about marketing, because people answer that last chance email, as we've been through. And you're going to want to not leave, in general, you're going to want to not leave that low price the entire first 30 days. There are exceptions to that, but that gets into talking about launch strategy as opposed to just marketing. So that's marketing to your list. Okay. You let them know it's out. You let them know what the price is. You let them know how long that price is going to be, and if the price is going to go up, and you make sure that they get a last chance email.
So the rhythm that we've settled into a little bit with the lists is typically now this depends on your list. I think it depends on your tolerance for your list, how warm they are, all that. But we mail typically 3 to 4 times during launch week, which is a lot. So we try to make sure that, the first one is a launch email. So the first one is definitely go buy this. And the last chance is definitely go buy this. And it's short. And so that one's coming a week later. And then there's 1 or 2 in the middle. So with Realm and Sand, so with the Dead City launch, we sent the sample chapter. So yes, it's a sale, it's a pitch, but it's a little softer because we're at least giving you a sample. Like, yes, we want you to buy, but at least it's not, here's the cover, go buy. But the additional email we've been doing in romance is giveaways. So that seems to be another thing that does seem to be that romance specific, like much more than other genres. We've tried it in sci-fi. We've tried giveaways and they just don't work as well. So you're using something like a Rafflecopter to incentivize people to share the book around, basically like a Facebook post, share this post, or tweet this message or something like that. Join my email list, these various sorts of things, in exchange for basically one or several entries into a contest to win things like signed paperback copies of books or a Kindle Fire. When we first started talking to Julie Huss, and she's like, you got to do paperback giveaways, we were both a little like, who would care? And Sean in particular was like, we don't need to do that. He was like, nobody gives a shit. I don't want to do that. I don't want to pack up books because nobody would give a shit. They give a shit. In romance, they give a shit. And it's kind of shocking how much they give a shit relative to what anybody in another genre would. So that email is, here's the Rafflecopter, and then that's a little bit more of a give because it's like, hey, get a chance to win. So we've settled into that. And then the price goes up, at the end of that week, the first week.
And giveaways of virtually any nature are a great idea during a launch week. And then they're also, remember, if we're talking about evergreen marketing, and your book is like 4 months old, they're also a really good way to incentivize people to help you to kind of bump something back up. If your book is 8 months or 9 months or 10 months old and you get a BookBub for it, maybe it's been languishing down in the ranks a little. Hopefully not. We'll talk about that in a minute. But maybe it's been languishing down in the ranks a little bit, and you want to get it up a little bit before that BookBub spike happens, because Amazon tends to suppress those spikes in the ranks. So you book a bunch of advertising in the few days leading up to the BookBub. And then that's when you also start calling on your list, calling on your social media, throw on a Rafflecopter or something of that nature, and get people incentivized. And you get a really good return for what can actually be a fairly small investment. If you say to people, share this post and I'll enter you for this prize, then the number of people that are doing the thing that you want them to do is exponentially much larger than what you actually have to give away as a prize. If I say to someone in a newsletter, reply and let me know which one of these books you picked up and I'll enter you for a gift card, and I give away 3 $10 gift cards, that's $30. I got, 150, 200 replies from people. These are people that I'm now engaged with. That helps with mailing list open rates. It helps with mailing list deliverability, I guess is what I mean to say. And it's a relatively small way to give yourself a little bit of a boost. Giveaways are. I would also say, we were talking about the other advertisers very briefly, like just off the top of my head, not a complete list, but e-reader news today, Book Barbarian, and they have 2 subsidiaries. The romance one I think is Red Roses, and then there's a thriller one, the name of which I can't remember, but you can Google it.
Is this for launch, Tammy?
This would definitely be right after launch, because they are not as choosy about number of reviews. I believe that Free Booksy, Bargain Booksy, they now have a specific romance sub list called Red Feather Romance, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
And Free Booksy and Bargain Booksy and Red Feather have, I don't even remember, but it's pretty low threshold. You have to have like 10 reviews, 20 reviews. I can't remember. It's really not huge though. This is something you can do the first week of launch if you've got a good ARC team. So you'll start booking either before, with the few that will let you book before, or right at launch, because that kind of advertising, obviously it doesn't have the oomph of the BookBub, but you cannot make a living sitting around applying for BookBub every month waiting for them to okay you. You need to apply to the smaller newsletter advertisers like ENT, Free Booksy, Book Barbarian. I can't remember the rest of them. Can't apply to Pixel of Ink anymore. They shut that down pretty quick. But then you also, here's the new thing. I know that Mark Dawson is talking about it in his new course, but my understanding is that he hasn't really cracked the nut either, because Amazon likes to make nuts you can't crack. Amazon ads. That's a thing that I'm seeing some people be extremely successful with. I'm seeing some people have a little bit less success with. My theory on Amazon ads has been you start running them the day your pre-order goes up, or the day that your book goes, that your book launches, period. You start right away. And what they will do, while they're generally not going to make a superstar out of you unless you have enormous amounts of money to throw at them, and it seems as though they show, like they turn up their for impressions based almost on how successful they've been in the past. There's a factor there in the Amazon ads that we can't quite put our finger on, but it's not a straight, you auction, you bid, and this is how often you'll get shown. There's something else at play there. But what they'll do, even if they're not making a superstar out of you, is they might keep you at 10,000 in the store instead of 70,000 in the store, or they might keep you at 50,000 in the store instead of 100,000 in the store. And those are not good ranks, but those are ranks that are a lot easier to recover from when you do decide to do an advertising promotion. When book 2 comes out and you want to boost book 1, but book 1 is 6 months old, then you need to not have been ranked like literally in the telephone numbers, because you can't pull that out as well anymore. So if you keep your Amazon ads and Facebook ads running so that there's a constant trickle of sales, maybe you're just breaking even, maybe you're making a tiny, tiny profit, but what you're doing is you're banking for that time down the road when you want to make a big push for it.
So let's talk a little bit about Amazon and their machine intelligence and all this stuff. So this is a little bit of Chris Fox.
I'll channel Chris Fox.
Right. So can you immediately grow a really dense beard? If you could just.
I cannot. Nobody can grow a beard like Chris.
So one of the things that we're experimenting with after talking to Chris and reading Chris's book, which is great. You should read Six Figure Author you should read all his books. Is the idea of conversion percentage. So if you are sending a bunch of people to Amazon, particularly Amazon, and your mailing list has, here's the Amazon link, and 1,000 people go there and 20 people buy, Amazon just says, wow, this guy must suck, because 1,000 people went there and only 20 bought, or whatever the numbers are. So we actually don't know this yet as to how well this is going to work. But one of the things that we've been doing with, I actually think there's only been 1 or 2 launches now that have done this, maybe only 1, is we're sending to a page on our site. It's actually counterintuitive in one way. So we did 2 things prior to the Dead City launch. We heavily segmented that list. So the list that we're sending to, the Realm and Sands list, I want to say it's around 20,000 people, maybe 17. I don't remember. Maybe it's over 20. Well, whatever. It's a good amount. And we sent emails beforehand saying, basically trying to get people to click things if they were into thrillers, or here's a book that we're relaunching. Here's the description. Does it sound like something you're interested in? Let us know. And I think that we winnowed that down to around 1,500 was the list of people who indicated that they were to some degree interested in Dead City. We only then sent the launch emails to that list. We did not send it to the 20-some thousand list. Then, in addition, rather than sending people to Amazon, Kobo, iBooks, which in one sense is a really smart move because it's 1 click instead of 2 clicks, like that's what we kind of used to feel. But now we're sending people to a page on our site with the cover and the description, and then they do have to click again if they want to go to Amazon. But what we're hoping is, if they're just tire kickers, if they're just like, wow, I want to see what this is, they'll stop at our page and will not then click over to Amazon just to leave again. So it should keep the conversion percentage higher, both the segmenting ahead of time, so we're not sending it to everybody, and then having that next page as a filter. And we'll see how well that works. But that's something that we're doing. And then the second thing I wanted to ask you about, Tammi, in terms of Amazon and ahead of time, this is like prep stuff, is what do you need to keep in mind about like categories? And are we still worrying about tags? Do we want to make sure that everything's square before we start sending traffic to it?
Clarify for me, what do you mean? Are we worried about tags?
Well, okay. So the easiest example again is in romance, which is if suddenly somebody decides that your romance book is erotica, you're not visible. But there are other things too in other genres, like, well, you wanted to be in genetic engineering, but you needed to do that in a certain way, like basically making sure that your house is in order before you launch so that you don't get screwed when you do launch.
Or waste that time and money, because we had to wait a long time to relaunch Dead City and get a second chance. I mean, I'm grateful that we have one, but expensive in the meantime.
Yes. So I think personally, how I feel about it is that nobody should know. This doesn't work with pre-orders, obviously. But if you're the sort that uploads your book and you hit publish and then you just sit back and wait for Amazon to decide 5 hours, 72 hours, who the hell knows? But if you're that sort of person, I don't think anybody should even know that you're hitting publish. You hit publish and then you get to look at your page, okay, right? Like, okay, this looks right, this looks right. All my categories came out right. I'm not dungeoned if I'm writing romance. Somebody didn't just decide that this is erotica and hide it. Like, I don't know, in the middle of my BookBub day, for example,
right.
like that. So you get your ducks in a row, make sure that everything is how that it should be, and then I would actually plug in the Amazon ads. Amazon ads first, because they have to approve them, so they take a little bit of time. Then you launch to the segment of your list, if you're segmenting your list, the segment of your list that's going to be the most interested, the ones that you think are most likely to open and be interested in it, right? And let those people go over and do what they need to do. And then you launch to the list at large if you have a bigger list or an alternate list. Or in my case, I have an organic list from like Back a Book signups for my pen name. And then I have a giveaway list that's like 7,000 people that maybe an eighth of them give a shit. Those people get it like after that, but the core people get it first. And that allows you to, because Chris is a sharp guy, okay? So Chris doesn't work at Amazon, obviously, but he can do what all of us are essentially doing, which is to try to figure out what's happening at Amazon based on what we can see. And there's very little that we can see. We can't look under the hood. It's a black box. They're not telling anybody how any of it works, how anything is weighted, how they determine anything, but you can look at what happens on Amazon and you can draw some conclusions. One of the best ways to do that is to look at your also bots. So whatever Amazon is doing under the hood over there is reflected in two places, your also bots and the popular lists, which are not called the popular lists anymore. They're called like featured or something. But the also bots and the pop lists are where you can see what Amazon is weighting and what Amazon's preferring. So like you're saying, you want to get the people that you know are interested in a particular genre or subgenre and get them in there so that the sorts of people who are going to like your book are the sorts of people who are already buying your book, and therefore Amazon will say, these are the sorts of people to whom I need to show this book. And that's when you get sent in emails to the people who bought things in your also bots. That's when you get sent, that's when you get shown in like search results and so forth. That's how the Amazon algorithms handle you, is based on figuring out the patterns of what people are buying and then trying to show them more of the same. So
right.
that's
so all promotion is not created equal.
No, all promotion is not created equal. And I really do think that they measure how many people show up and leave without buying. It's very hard to see any kind, you can't get line of sight on that, but I believe it with all of my heart. So
I do too.
You guys have always been at a pretty big disadvantage that way, because if you're releasing something, you've got a bunch of people looking over your shoulder. That's a function of how just,
Yeah, no, that was a light bulb moment for the company when we realized, oh, we're totally screwing our conversion.
Yeah, so if you've got that buffer page, that helps a lot.
My favorite example of this is we had a promotion years ago when we were launching Future Sex. And we were just like, we knew that this had a big list, and so we did it, and it was not a good segment. It was not. And so this sci-fi erotica thing at the time had in its also bots a bunch of like paleo books. And it was like, wow, it was actually worse than actually just doing it in the first place, because it's Amazon's showing it to all the wrong people. It didn't know what to do with the book. You want targeted promotion, not just promotion.
Yes, which is why the best lists, BookBub is a great example. Book Barbarian and their thriller and romance segments are a great example. I'm thrilled that FreeBooksy has a romance, like segmented romance list now, because that helps you right there get the people that they're showing the book to are already predisposed to like it. And it's one of the reasons that if given my choice, I will generally put money into Amazon ads before I will put them into Facebook ads, because people on Amazon are looking for a book to read. People on Facebook are generally not. So to me, getting that person who's on Amazon with their wallet out browsing for a book, and they're browsing on a page where I chose a keyword so I would appear on that page, that to me is a much more opportunistic way to be marketing. So I think it's really important. I think that people find them very frustrating because they are not tremendously lucrative. I know authors who are making staggering amounts of money and not a one of them says, I'm killing it with Amazon ads. Like, that's just not a thing that is happening. But the people that are making a lot of money and are making smart choices about keywords and so forth are doing very well and are at least breaking even, and in some cases making a profit. So that's pretty good. And if you've got a series, if you're advertising a series starter, it's that exact same funnel conversation that you guys have been having since 2012. If you've got a first in series and it's doing well in Amazon ads, awesome, because you know there's sell-through to the later books in those series that you can't get line of sight on exactly, but you know that whatever the supposed return is on your book, it's actually much greater because you've got some other books to sell.
So thoughts on promoting any book other than the first in a series? Ever acceptable?
Yeah, absolutely acceptable. People will definitely tell you it's not, and it's certainly not as simple, and the results are not always as good. Even if you are one of those people who writes like a linked series of books, but they honestly can be read in any order. And lots of romance series are like that, right? So romance series have a couple, and then like the next book in the series has like her best friend and like his brother or whatever. And there's really no spoilers for book one. I mean, surprise, the couple ended up together in book one. We knew that was going to happen. So
No.
you don't have to read them in order, but people are orderly and they'd like to. So even if you have one of those standalone kind of series, people do tend to, they're more likely to pick up a book one. They're more likely to say, oh, I can start at the beginning and it's on sale right now, than if you promote, say, book four. But that is by no means a hard and fast rule. And it's not even necessarily a majority of people. I know that the romance writers I know, they advertise whatever. They do not stick with just a book one. My friend Wayne, who I talked about earlier, his first series was up to like 10 books or whatever. He's had BookBubs for at least 6 or 7 different ones in that series. And those, while they are standalones, I mean, obviously the character has some changes and his life circumstances have changes, but people pick them up and then they go back to book one. Anytime you advertise like a book 6, you'll notice increased sales on book one, particularly if book one's a perma-free or a 99-center, because people are like, oh, this is free today, or this was cheap today. Oh, and I can grab book one too and get started. So there is definitely plenty of reason to discount those books. The people who are reading along in the series with you, they already have that book anyway. So when you're marketing, you know, when you're doing like a sale for a book 6 that's been out for 8 months, everybody who was reading along probably has it. So you're sort of approaching that as, how do I get new readers into a book in the series that's not the first book? But it's totally doable. I see no particular prejudice out of any of the newsletter advertisers that like they don't take later books in a series or whatever. That doesn't seem to be any problem at all.
So what about the non-launch promotion? You know, you want, obviously, like we said, BookBub is the sort of the thing that you, so like I actually made a note in the show notes that it was like, so how tips and tricks to use a BookBub strategy whenever you can.
Whenever you can. Yeah, tip number 1 is to apply for a BookBub absolutely every time that they will let you with every book that you have. They will reject you and they'll say, don't apply for 4 weeks. You put the 4 weeks on your calendar, and when the 4 weeks is up, you apply again. And you keep applying and you keep applying and you keep applying. They take you or they don't. Then you have to figure out your non-BookBub strategy, because like I said, you can't sit around and wait for that lightning to strike. They can be a career maker. I have seen them be a career maker. I have also seen people sit around and wait for that lightning to strike, get the lightning strike, have an awesome month, and then go back to the telephone numbers. So it's by no means a guarantee, and you need to have another strategy. I really believe Amazon ads is super important, or should be super important in everybody's strategy. Like I said, just to keep you out of the telephone numbers. That's really important. It's hard to pull yourself up. I don't remember or even know if he knew the exact numbers, but when I listened to Data Guy, who's the guy who does the author earnings report with Hugh Howey, when I listened to him on Lindsay Buroker's podcast, it's got to be at least a year or more ago now. What he was saying is the Amazon figures rank based on how many books you sold today, and a fraction of the equation is how many books you sold yesterday and the day before and the day before that, and it diminishes off into the distance, right? So we don't know the exact numbers, but what we do know is that if you've been ranked 1 million for 6 months, Amazon's algorithms don't give a damn about your BookBub that you had today, because in 2 weeks, that tail is gone. It's over. So you need to be higher than that. You need to always be coming from the strongest place you can. You need to always be selling. What is that movie? Why am I being
Glengarry Glen Ross?
Closing. Always be closing.
Coffee is for closers.
So you need to always be selling, not in that gross, like I post my book on Twitter every 15 seconds way, and not in that, like I go on Facebook and I beg people to buy my book way, but in that way that like, here's a great example. So I have a friend who's a romance writer. We met and hung out in Seattle a couple months ago, and she said, do you get so-and-so's newsletter? And I said, I don't. She said, well, look at this. So she shows me the newsletters, almost entirely plain text. She said, look at the bottom. At the bottom of this newsletter, she always lists every book she has published. It's a long ass list, by the way. She said, but I was talking to her and she said, somebody always clicks on every one of these books. Every one of these books. I check my newsletters and every link gets a click at least once. So there's somebody out there who looks through that list and goes, oh, I didn't have that one. So always do that. Put a link to your page, your Amazon author page, whatever, your Facebook, at the bottom of all of your emails. Stay on top. Yes.
Does that hurt? I thought on newsletters, you're not supposed to throw too many links in there.
Well, that would be the conventional wisdom for sure. And yet, here we have this thing that's totally working. So it's not like in the body of her email. It's like the footer. Like, here's some stuff. Here's my release.
The individual books or to a page like her author page?
It's the link. Oh man, I'm really mad that I can't remember. There's a service that allows you to put just a book link and it will parse them out to the proper Amazon store. The person in question was exclusive to Amazon, so she didn't have to worry about like whatever, but there's a service where you can just put in a universal book link and it will send them to your book in the proper store for their country. So that's what she was using for that. And then what was I going to say? Oh, so in addition to that, though, like just those kind of like, that's a lot like Amazon ads to me. It's just a trickle. It's just a little trickle. Someone's always noticing that you've got whatever it is that you've got. And then in addition to that, while you're waiting for the BookBub lightning to strike, that may never strike, you're also looking at those smaller advertisers and using them. You have to keep in mind how big their lists are and that they don't, as a rule, the other ones don't recruit as actively and aggressively as BookBub does. So you can't use them as often. One really good way to handle it is to look at what BookBub's requirements are and make them, I'd say, twice as long for any other advertiser. So BookBub won't advertise a book any more often than every six months. So if you're looking at eReader News Today or Free Booksy or something like that, either only use them once a year or understand that if you use them every 6 months or every 3 months, you're going to get diminishing returns. Those lists get fatigued. And so, I mean, for the same book, of course, those lists get fatigued. So you can't just keep flogging your same book one every 90 days just because eReader News Today will let you do it every 90 days. You have to like be smart and say, okay, the first time I moved this many copies, the second time I moved a third as many copies, I'm going to let that one sit for 6 months or so and see what happens after that, because they do get exhausted. It's like, your fields, you have to leave your fields fallow for a little while so you can grow something new there.
We have a comment. We have a comment from Caro that says books2read.com is the link service.
That's the one. Thank you, Caro. So that is a really awesome feature if you happen to be Amazon exclusive, or if you're at least cool with shooting traffic in that direction, because it's just my newsletter footer, it's fine, whatever. Because it does parse the people out to the proper store, and then you don't have to list, Amazon UK, Amazon whatever, Canada. If you're wide, I'm not sure how well that works out. I guess you'd have to include the Kobo link, the whatever else link, and then things could get really unwieldy. But it's just really smart. It's just really smart. This is your job. This is what you do. If you were the CEO of, some Fortune 500 company, you would have your website in your email signature. You'd have a way to reach you in your email signature. You're an author. This is your business, so act like it and put that in there.
Do you think it hurts to say link to your, let's say you have on your website like a page or white space and all the links, so could you just link to each book page on your website? Do you think that would hurt that second step, not going direct?
You're always going to lose a little bit of conversion, like Johnny was talking about earlier. Like the conventional wisdom is get them straight to the purchase page. But there are, first of all, reasons you might want to, and second, better to get them in the right spot than to send them to the wrong spot and they're hunting around and they get annoyed. So I'd rather have the second click than list like literally 8 buy links for every single book in my email footer. Like that's crazy talk. So that's what I would do. You can also just have a link that says, you know, this is a list of my books. And it takes them to a page that just lists all of your books. That's totally fine as well. But in this particular case, and it was a long list, she had literally every book in there. And it was very surprising. And I thought to myself, she's always selling. She's always saying, here's everything that I have for you. Why don't you double check and make sure you've got them all?
She wants the coffee. She's a closer.
She's a closer. She is definitely a closer.
Dave?
I said I actually like that.
Well, it just seems simple because, I mean, really, we never know when people are entering our story, when people are entering our world. So somebody who reads us, you know, for the first time with 12 is a different reader than somebody who finds us with Karma Police or with Yesterday's Gone. And so being able to navigate that, and not just through email, which is the way we commonly suggest handling that to get somebody through that sequence, but as simple as here's a list, start here. That's smart.
Right? Start here. And if you were the sort of person like, I don't know, you write in epic fantasy and you have like 7 different trilogies, then maybe you just link to the first books in all of them, right? And so that's a shorter list. But whatever will be most engaging for people and tell them, here's a place you can start if you haven't already, is really, really smart. And so in terms of evergreen marketing, there's sort of that marketing that you do, and then there's the intentional advertising purchase marketing that you do, like say getting an ENT every 6 months or getting a bargain booksy every 6 months or whatever. And then there's all that same stuff that we were talking about. Here's the thing about this, it never fucking ends, okay? So it's all the same stuff that we've been talking about since before launch. You're like, I guess I'll post about this crap on Facebook again. And you have to make it fresh, and you have to make it engaging, and you have to make it interesting, and you have to make it sound like you're not just trying to sell people books, because, I mean, you can sell widgets, you know? So like romance, for example, one really great ongoing sort of marketing thing, if you want to call it that, would be reader groups, right? So you could have a reader group, and then anytime you've got a new release, you've got, you know, 250, 500, 1,000 people, however many, I bet Julie has a ton, in your reader group. And those people are all, some of them are on your newsletter, some of them are following you on Facebook, some of them might even be following you on Amazon, but some of them are not. So you've cast your net sort of wide. You catch the people who like to hang out on reader groups, you catch the people who are into newsletters, that kind of thing. And so maybe you start a group, and Dave, I know you'll like this because I can remember in the olden days you talking about Carl's blog and how Carl talked about stuff that was interesting to Carl. And if he published a book that was about that same kind of stuff, all those people he hung out with would want to read that book. So like I have a reader group I actually share with another author because I have time to have my own reader group. And we have a really important rule there, which is that if you read a book you like, not one of our books, but if you read a romance that you like, come and tell us about it. Like, we don't care who wrote it. We don't care how much it costs. We don't care if it's in KU. We don't care if it came out yesterday or 4 years ago. If you've read an awesome book, come and tell us, because we all want to talk about awesome books and read awesome books. And I find that to be an incredibly engaged and really excited group of people. And I announced my pre-order in there earlier, and I already have 35 pre-orders. I mean, that was like an hour ago. So that's really exciting. Those are people who it's not that you want to market to them, but they're your readers. They're your readers. If you're not writing to be read, then I'm not sure why you're writing. And if you are writing to be read, then you have to sell it to people. I don't think I have to preach that to this particular crowd because they're here on the self-publishing podcast, but there's still like, I meet a lot of authors who are like, I just really want to write the book and I don't want to have to keep selling it to people. And I'm like, you have to keep selling it to people.
So maybe a good way to finish this up. is let's talk about what are some kind of cool ninja strategies. So I'll give you one to give you an idea of the sort of thing I'm thinking of, and maybe this is the only example we have. I don't know. I actually did this with the Fat Vampire bundle at one point, and we've done it with a bundle recently, or we are, where you can give away a bundle or something like real cheap if you can do a BookBub or some sort of promotion but have an ulterior motive. Do you want to describe how that would work, Tammy?
So if you had, for example, 3 books in a series and they don't sell as tremendously well as you might like, and you might not be having a lot of luck getting, say, a BookBub for them, or you're not going to get a BookBub, but let's say we're going to book a bargain booksy or an ENT or something. Maybe you bundle those, right? Because people love bundles. And maybe you mark it down to 99 cents or even free, because whatever, it doesn't sell that great anyway. But you've got a new book coming out, or you've got another series that does really, really well when you get it in front of people. So at the end of this, say, bundle, you put a super, super strong call to action for something else. There's a little bit of a sacrifice involved there, right? You're kind of throwing the one book on the sword to save the others. So you give away your bundle, or you sell you have a really cheap sale on your bundle of books that doesn't perform quite as well as you want. And then there's a super, super strong call to action at the back of that for the series that it's just more magnetic. It converts better. You wrote it later, so it's better written, or it just has a better cover, or it's more tropey, more on target with people, better abs. If you're in romance, maybe it's got a really good abs on the cover. And so what you're doing then is, instead of discounting this other book that you right now don't want to run a promo on, you're running almost a stealth promo, right? So you've got the promo on the thing that is not as dear to you, leading directly into the thing that you really hope that people will want. You used to be able to, you can't, it's against the rules now, and I am not saying that anyone should do it, but you used to be able, on Amazon, you used to be able to run an ad for a book, and then in the product description, you would say, check out such and such, it's on sale today. So if you couldn't get an ad for a particular book, BookBub won't take this no matter what I do, but I can get a BookBub on this other one, you just kind of shunt the BookBub people over to your other thing. You can't do that anymore. That's very uncool. But it's the same idea. When they get to the end of this book, it's going to say, oh, how about this other one? And if you really want to be forceful about it, you can put it in the front. The call to action.
We've done that before. Don't read this book. This is the book I had to promote. I want you over here in this series. We've done that before.
Totally. You can totally do that. And so if you're running a promo on the book, we'll just call it, the bundle. We'll call it a bundle, because that's a good way to get people. People love 3 books for 99 cents. Sign me up. Or 3 books for free, even better. You run a promo on this bundle, right? And then the call to action at the front is your free series starter for the series that's 8 books long that makes you a lot of money when you get it in front of people. So you just shunt them right over there. Even if they then go on to read the bundle in question, if they clicked on that get a free book, you just sucked them into that particular funnel.
Or on your mailing list.
And as everybody knows, the funnels are the sort of the lifeblood here of the company. We have the tactics versus strategy conversation a lot, and funnel is the strategy. Our tactics change. Put it in the front of the book, put it at the end of the book, have a Facebook ad, have an Amazon ad, do a newsletter swap. There's 100 different tactics, but the strategy is always the same.
We're religious to the strategy.
Yeah, we are religious to the strategy. It's a strategy that works. It's a time-honored strategy, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing unethical about it. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's give somebody something for cheap.
What works about it so great is that it's very direct. It's here's our cheap or free product because there's more that you may like it, and it's obviously the consumer wins, and so does the creator. It's perfect.
That's exactly how it works. And if they don't like it, they're not out anything but some time, which is not to say that time isn't important, but they're not out anything except some time. And then you've avoided someone buying books from you that they will hate, which I would feel terrible about. I don't want people to buy my books that don't like them. Actually, I would rather give them a free or very cheap book. And then if they like it, well, they can buy the rest because they're going to like those too.
All right. So let's wrap it up on this. Tammy, that was fantastic. I think that this is one of those episodes that it's like you need to take notes.
Oh, yeah, I would
hope
listen to this one twice.
Yeah.
Okay, I really hope it was helpful.
It was helpful. Very helpful. Tammy, you need to appreciate your awesomeness more. So
I'm
this was
so awesome.
There you go. Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Self-Publishing Podcast or watching it. And thank you, Tammy, for being here. And we will see you all next time.